What is up, people? You are listening in to New Generation Hero Talk. I am your host, EJ Stewart. This is a big show, a momentous show for us because we're doing our official spoiler recap review of DC's Superman. We've been thinking about this movie for a while, obviously, ever since it was announced that James Gunn was going to be leading the new DC cinematic universe. That he was hired, of course, by the Warner CEO. What's that guy's name? I can't remember that clown's name. Zaslav, David Zaslav, yeah. Hired by David Zaslav with Peter Safran to create a new universe, and we knew that it was going to begin from the film side. We have seen an animated show with Creature Commandos. From the film side, we're going to begin with DCU Superman. So we got a lot to say about this film. This film, I think, is really dominated much of the conversation. I feel like on social media, it's pretty much been a Superman / Clips weekend. It's like everybody's talking about two things. Either you're a hip hop fan, the Clips album, or a music fan, the Clips album, or you're talking about Superman. So I'm excited to talk about this. I'm thinking about the days we've been doing this podcast now for Sham, of course, joins us here on the podcast, Mari Stewart. We've been doing this podcast for a good, more than 10 years now, or about 10 years actually, right? Around 10 years. And we have talked about, at the time, was Booty Superman a possibility? We've been reviewing movies like BVS and Wonder Woman. Like we've been at this for a while. So to see us start this podcast talking about an entirely different universe and obviously the beginnings of a new one is really exciting.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. And like you said, it's been a long time coming, especially for DC. DC's had such a tumultuous kind of history on screen, and we've reviewed all of it, or practically all of it, as you pointed out. We've been watching it from, I don't know if I'd say it's inception. Obviously, you have the older kind of, Lois and Clark, and a lot of the older kind of DC shows, but I know I've been watching it since like Smallville, and of course we've been watching basically the entire like Berlantiverse and everything that's been on TV, the silver screen, so to speak, and then all the movies that have come out on the big screen. So yeah, this is a very exciting review for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, we've been at this for a while, and we know how important Superman is as a character, not just for us superhero fans and comic book fans, but just I think American media as a whole. I think you've seen that with some of the commentary that's happened around this character that's gone well beyond just superhero fans, well beyond movie fans. It's gone into news and politics. So I think it speaks to just how important this character is. And I think why Kendall, I think there's been such a missing void, quite frankly, in the discussion. And Kendall, of course, joins us on the podcast as well. I think was reminded just how important Superman is to people here in the U.S. and throughout the world with the conversations around this film. Oh, you mean Kendall?
Apologies. I mean, for me, I think that, you guys are right. You've been talking about a long time coming. It's been a long time since we've obviously had a new DC universe. Obviously, again, you go all the way back to before we were doing the show, I guess, with Man of Steel. But yeah. To me, what's fascinating about this is I feel like this movie kind of came together pretty quickly. Because it doesn't feel that much long ago. It doesn't feel that much longer ago where, Black Adam came out, and we were, speculating, are we going to get, Henry Cavill, the Rock movie. And right. Now, to be fair, it was really fast, really quickly after that movie when Zaslav was like, we're pulling the plug on this whole thing and we're going to James Gunn. But, and really quickly after that decision was made, James Gunn already had an idea for a Superman movie laid out and was hit the ground running. And so we've gotten this thing now pretty quickly. And it was funny is that this, this feels like about the fourth installment of the introduction to the James Gunn DCU, because, when, it was the Flash, at first where it was like, oh yeah, James Gunn's now in charge but it's not a James Gunn movie, but it's a James Gunn, right. Stamped DC Studios movie. And then we had Blue Beetle, which was like, yeah, this isn't a James Gunn movie. It was kind of made in the DCEU, but now it's in the DCU, and it's not going to contradict with anything.
Yeah.
It'll be the first DCU character.
Yeah, but don't expect a sequel. Like you may see like an
don't expect the sequel, but the character exists. And then of course we had Creature Commandos, which you mentioned, which was the animated introduction to the DCU canon universe that we were seeing. And then of course you could throw in, Penguin was DC Studios technically, but that was Elseworlds, and Peacemaker season 1, I guess, is canon. I have no idea. We'll see how that plays out. But with all those projects aside, it was the proper, real introduction to what the DCU and DC Studios banner will look like under James Gunn. And so I think we all agree it was a strong, positive win for DC, just based off reception alone. Even take out our own, personal opinion on the movie, which we'll talk about. The reception has been an absolute W for DC. So, and the box office as well.
Yeah, I mean, talking about a box office opening, we're seeing domestically $122 million for the opening weekend. That would be the biggest opening weekend for any Superman movie ever. That would eclipse Man of Steel. That I think was just around 114, I believe. And I expect that box office number to rise. I don't expect that number to be one of those first weekend numbers that you see a massive plummet like we saw with BVS and Man of Steel and some of those other movies. We could talk about this movie again. This movie, James Gunn's Superman DCU movie, starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Thomas Holt, and Nicholas Holt, and an overall phenomenal cast. And I'll say this. As we do this podcast and as we do all of our review shows, I remind folks that this is a spoilers review. So if this is a situation where you don't want to get spoiled and you want to watch the movie, then thanks for listening to the first 7 minutes of this show. Come back after you've seen the movie, and then we can talk about it then, and then you can listen to the podcast and have a good time. If you have already seen the movie, you want to hear our discussion, and this is the right podcast for you. If you have not seen the movie but you don't care about being spoiled, you want to, in fact, have our opinion inform your decision of whether or not you want to watch a movie, because a lot of people like that too, then again, hang tight, but just understand there will be spoilers throughout the movie. We are talking about this movie, as if you watched the entire film. So with that being said, this film, again, is starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Holt. This movie is a classic to me. I've seen it twice already. Shamari and I were fortunate enough to get to see it in an advanced screening just a couple of days before the official release of the movie, thanks to the Amazon Prime deal they set, where Amazon Prime users were allowed to buy tickets to the movie. So we both saw it Tuesday night of the week of the premiere of this movie. This was a classic. This, to me, when I think of the solo movie entrances that I remember throughout my history of watching superhero movies, I think of Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. I think of Black Panther. I think of Wonder Woman. This movie is right. The Dark. I guess the Dark Knight has sequels. I'll put that aside. But Batman Begins. Like, I put this movie up with those movies. This to me is Superman's version of that post Christopher Reeve. We haven't had a good Superman movie that I think stood up to that standard since the Christopher Reeve's Superman movies, and this movie stands up to that. First thing I'll say is James Gunn 100% nailed the casting. I don't know if he could have got a better Superman, a better Lois Lane, and a better Lex Luthor, which to me, it almost already kind of put him, he was already 10 steps ahead of the game just simply by that. David Corenswet, you talk about like really encompassing the role of Superman and living up to the moment of what that means to being Clark Kent and Superman, and playing both of those characters. He was absolutely phenomenal. This is not a guy that I've watched a lot of his projects. This is not a guy that has a super duper long IMDb page and there's been a lot of major projects. This is my first real exposure to David Corenswet, and I could not have been more impressed with just how much he understood what this character meant and what he had to bring to the table. He was phenomenal. I think his chemistry with Rachel Brosnahan was so impressive. Like I don't like in the Superman Lois, the Clark Lois dynamic. for me, I'll be honest, is like not like a super interesting dynamic to me in terms of when I think of like partnerships, relationships, and whatever. Like, I guess maybe just because it's been like they've been together for literally 70 years at this point, whatever. There's only so many different wrinkles you can add to the dynamic that I'm not someone clamoring for more Superman than Lois, no pun intended, obviously, since that was, of course, a show. But I really felt like, wow, like these two really nailed, I feel like, what I would imagine an early on-set relationship between Clark and Lois would be. And I think Rachel bringing this kind of like very much kind of cynicism and this, almost dogged attitude towards Clark and Superman, even though she knows he is Superman, I thought was really on the nose. Whether they were having bad moments or good moments, in both moments, I really was in full belief that they were 100% invested and 100% in it in terms of their characters. And then finally, Nicholas Hoult, Lex Luthor, phenomenal again, and it really cleansed the palate of what we saw. I felt like from Jesse Eisenberg's Superman, and it's only natural that this is going to become, comparisons at times between the previous Zack Snyder Superman movies and this movie. But I think the most dogged defender of Zack Snyder won't defend doggedly that portrayal of Lex Luthor, at least not as passionately as they would other things about that movie and those movies. This was what you want to see from Lex Luthor, like this arrogance, yet brilliance, and yet like also like sadism about him that he's able to encompass all in three, and the way he was able to bring that to the screen. He was a high paid guy on this movie. He made $2 million because he had, of course, the biggest background. I told a friend, I think that some of that was a little apology money because, of course, he lost out on Superman. He lost out on Batman. I think some of that was like, hey, sorry you didn't get those bigger roles, but like, here's $2 million. Please play this very important character. That is a villain, but is definitely important. And he didn't play a character like a guy like he was, still sad that he wasn't Superman or he wasn't Batman. I thought he absolutely brought it. He was invested in the role. So he's phenomenal. So the casting I thought was great. I thought in terms of the story, in terms of what they crafted, very impressed with how a movie that had so many characters involved never felt overcrowded. It was a big issue that we talked about leading up into this movie. And overall, I just think that with the action that they brought to the table, it's hard hitting, it is emotional, it is dramatic. It is, in my opinion, what I said on Twitter when I posted this Tuesday night, it is, I think, everything you would want to see out of a Superman movie. They make some interesting decisions throughout this movie. We'll talk plenty about them. But overall, I think that this is a classic. I think that this is a definitely one of the things that you talk about shifting the dynamic of power among just not the DC universe, but just the superhero universe. Marvel is in trouble. That needs to be made very clear. Marvel is in trouble. Watching that movie, I said I haven't felt this way about watching a superhero movie since Endgame. And we've had a lot of Marvel movies since then. We've had even good Marvel movies since then. I haven't felt what I felt watching that film. DC is headed in the right direction. In Marvel, you got a couple of weeks to get your act together. When, in fact, Fantastic Four comes out. You got a year to get your act together before Secret Wars comes out because the DCU is coming. And we could be seeing a big shift in the future if Marvel does not get their act together. Because I cannot wait to see more of what James Gunn has in store for his DC universe. I love this movie. Shamari, I'll toss to you, my other brother who saw it early. What did you think of the Superman movie?
Man, what a great movie, man. I left that movie, I was like, wow. Oh, like, man. James Gunn coming in with the it's like you're playing backyard baseball. He had like a special move or something.
The fireball.
At the plate. Yeah, like
the game breaker.
Yeah, the game breaker. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, this was a great movie. Great movie. And it's funny because, like, I'm speaking as someone that was a Snyderhead, not like a toxic Snyderhead, but like a Snyder. I enjoyed. I'm not one of these movie people.
You remember review bombing the movie on Rotten Tomatoes, freezing tickets online.
Hashtag super shit.
Hey, Snyder people, man, give me a bad name. Well, like But yeah, no, I enjoy the Snyder's movies, and I love Man of Steel. But man, this is a great movie. This is the best movie. Like you said, EJ, this is the best superhero movie I've seen since Endgame.
Mm.
You know, like Corn Sweat and EJ, we obviously we were texting and talking after the movie.
Yeah.
Corn Sweat won me over quick. He
Yeah.
won me over quick. Like I was like, and of course they start the movie with the trailer scene, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's really smart.
Yeah.
And he won me over quick. It was quick. I'm like, oh man, this guy's Superman. This is Superman. I was like, I know why Gunn gave this guy the role. Because I'm watching this, I'm like, oh no, yeah, that's Superman. I bought it instantly. His Clark won me over quick, even though like his hair didn't look as goofy. I don't know why it looked so goofy in the trailer, but it didn't look as goofy in like the movie. And like, I just said, Lois was fantastic. She was like a great Lois. Though I don't think I can't remember seeing like a bad Lois. Even like Amy Adams, I thought was like a solid Lois. I haven't seen any bad Lois.
Yeah.
But Rachel Brosnahan did like a fantastic job. Nicholas Hoult was fantastic as Lex. You know, and he's the best Lex I've seen since either Rosenbaum. Even though I know Cryer was also very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a fantastic Lex Luthor. Shout out to the Justice Gang / Justice League, Mr. Terrific, and Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl. Man, the entire squad was great. That Mr. Terrific scene was crazy when he was with Lois and going after the trying to save Superman.
Yeah.
Man,
We're talking about the casting. Edie Gathegi also is in a position where his career changed after this film. Yeah. He's on a different plane after what he was able to accomplish with this movie, because I think he was as Mr. Terrific was phenomenal.
He's no longer known for the meme of being remember when the X-Men movie killed the one character that couldn't die?
He's
no longer that guy anymore.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, that was he was definitely a standout for sure. Mr. Terrific was so great in the movie. Yeah, and I thought so many different things were handled well, and like even there being like a conflict in the political conflict going on with and Superman stepping in, of course as Superman would. And it was just very, very well done. And Crypto was great. Crypto was great in the movie. Was not used too much. Wasn't like, okay, now we got to get the Crypto.
Just there to sell a toy.
No, it wasn't there to sell a toy or to anything. It was the whole movie was great. I thought it was a fantastic movie. Superman and the Batman movie are like here and here. It's like a neck and neck. I was watching the Batman last night. Because I had to refresh. I was like, man, I gotta watch this movie again. Now I gotta see.
Shamari had to get back in the lab.
Like, yeah, it was a great movie, man. This is just again, perfect way to start the universe. I'm already invested. I already want to see the Justice League. I already want to see the Green Lantern stuff. I already want to see everything else.
Shamari, super high in the film. Kendall, initial thoughts on Superman?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought that this movie was a win for DC. I think I'm gonna come away maybe a little bit lower on the movie than you guys, but I thought it was definitely a good movie. I think, you guys hit the nail on the head that the casting was A1, right? I mean, James Gunn, you could tell James Gunn put a hell of a lot of thought into this movie. Every single thing he did, every single decision he made. This was not, and that's something that, and look, he's talked about that, right? In a lot of these interviews he's had since he's taken over this role, that like, look, DC is going to be about quality, not quantity. We're going to take our time. We're going to make sure everything is right. And when he got this job, again, this was the first thing he did. He set out to make this movie. He had this release date. Release date never really changed, and he got the movie out on time, and it was a high quality movie. So credit to him on that. And again, the decisions on Corn Sweat. I mean, remember all the names we were going through with that movie, in that role rather, and like it was, a ton of people, but like to end up on David Corn Sweat, like it was like okay, it's kind of like the Tom Holland where it was like, nobody really knows who this guy is, so he must be good, right? This must be a real fit here. And obviously we had heard that the chemistry between him and Brosnahan was a key factor in why they, in terms of potential screen testings and things of that nature, why they wanted to
the screen testing that they did for those two was the scene where Lois interviewed Superman, which is interesting, which is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And I'm like, yeah, I can see why this would be the scene where you're saying, Lois, you're hired, Rachel, you're hired. Oh my gosh, I love that scene so much, and it's a scene that you saw bits and pieces in the trailer, but the trailer just doesn't do it justice. And that was really apparently the scene that sold James Gunn and sold DC.
Yeah, 100%. Again, Nicholas Hoult. I think this was an all-time great villain, superhero villain, super movie villain performance. It's the best villain we've had. Again, some will say Thanos. I think Thanos, I'm not going to say he's a little overrated, but I don't know. I think, some of that is just like, look, this is just a crazy strong, like, powerful villain. But, like, it's hard to say, like, in terms of performances, like, I don't know. Brolin did a great job, right? I'm not going to knock Brolin, but it's a CG role.
I say Thanos' role is broken.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, take Thanos out of it. Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger.
Oh, yeah.
Fassbender as Magneto, even though Fassbender is like, how many of the movies is he actually the villain? I guess maybe the second one, but
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, and then you're going all the way back to Heath Ledger, right? We're talking all time great. I think Willem Dafoe is Green Goblin in both movies, honestly. But he's on that level, and that's a hard thing to get. That's a hard level to get to. And when you talk about comparing DC to Marvel, that's something Marvel just has struggled with constantly. All right, is getting villains right. And so for the first DCU movie to come out and it to have an all-time great villain, and it's Lex Luthor, right? It's not like, again, like Killmonger, for example. It's like, all right, you get Eric Killmonger, right? Like you kind of have I'm not going to say you have a blank canvas, right? But you can kind of tell them however you want. Like there's not a whole lot of pressure there, from in terms of fan base and like, oh man, like, whereas like with Lex Luthor, there's going to be people, you have obviously the Snyder people being like, oh, there's not enough Jesse Eisenberg. You got the old school Gene Hackman fans. You have the Smallville Michael Rosenbaum fans. You have the animated
almost
Brown.
Almost everybody knows who Lex Luthor is.
Everybody knows who Lex Luthor, and everybody has a favorite Lex Luthor already.
Right. Has a thought of what he should be. Right.
100%. And a lot of these aren't the same. And so to come out and do such a good version of it himself that encapsulates a lot of all of these different characters that we just mentioned, a lot of those different actors. Again, incredible job by Nicholas Hoult. It's like he did tap into some of that energy of having not gotten the Superman role, right? And use that for the clear disdain that he had for that character carried over into the movie, and channeled it. But no, and then again, good side characters as well. You mentioned the Justice Gang. I was really concerned about their inclusion in this movie because I was like, look, we've seen this movie before, right? How many times are we going to see a fake Justice League, the Justice Society and Black Adam, that's what it felt like. And they had a similar role. I'm not going to say they were that much different, but they were good. Again, Mr. Terrific was excellent. Guy Gardner was good. I think Hawkgirl was a little underutilized, but, but the little bit she had, I thought she was good as well. And then I thought the Daily Planet also might have been a little bit underutilized as well, but they didn't want to focus too much on that aspect of it. But I thought all those characters were interesting as well, right? So again, I thought it was good. I think there was maybe just some like, I'm not gonna say story stuff, but like, I don't know, some certain like, I don't know if I needed the kaiju scene, and I wasn't sure. As much as I liked Lex Luthor as a villain, I'm not sure how I felt about the Ultraman thing and all that. But But I thought it was a very good movie.
Yeah, so let's get into it, man. So again, this movie, um, really interesting how it kind of begins. It kind of begins basically telling you kind of where things stand with the DC universe, so you have an understanding of what's been going on. So 300 years ago, metahumans exist in this world, and then it's 30 years ago where a a ship from Krypton crashes into Earth, and it is then is then 27 years later that Superman announces himself to the world as James Gunn put it, the most powerful metahuman that there is, and it is then 3 hours before that he is in his first fight that he is in with the Baravian hammer, and then 3 minutes ago he has lost his fight, and that is where you see him. All threes, by the way, so the next synergy there in terms of just interesting with that point, but. How do you feel just beginning just where we are and how that sets up the DC universe, Sham? Like Superman, we know his age, we know kind of how long he's been around. This is 3 years in. He has never lost a fight until this Baravian hammer fight. So we're kind of just seeing that how they set up that world and now the context of what we saw in this movie overall. How did you think of where this is and where this will be going?
I think it's a good I think it's a good way to kind of set up the world. Um, I mean, I do think it's interesting that we have like Superman is in this world. We kind of recently had metahumans, and we already kind of have like a Justice League like thing,
Mm-hmm.
but Superman isn't in it. But he's still like their friend, kind of
Like
kind of thing.
He's like an ally, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. But I think it's good. I think this is a good point to kind of start, building this larger universe. We know we have like Lanterns coming up, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
We know we have, for me, kind of the thing that I'm curious about is this Batman Brave and the Bold. I'm still skeptical, even though I think this is a good launch point for the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still of the opinion, and I've seen a few other people say the same thing, that this just even, and I think I told somebody it was either EJ or Kendall, but this makes me feel even more that I want Pattinson to be the Batman.
A lot
not
of people
less.
have said that.
Yeah, like this makes me feel much more. And I think I told you guys even before the movie, I was like, "Oh, if it's good, how would you?" I'm like, "I'd want it more."
Why is that? Not that having seen the movie.
I think first of all, this Batman is great. It's a great Batman, fantastic Batman. Like I think this, I think this Batman, this Gotham they've created, is a good contrast to the Metropolis that's in the world. I think I would love to see, and again, I was just watching the Batman last night. I would love to see this Batman interact with Superman. They're so opposite. This Batman is so like stoic and in his own head and to himself, and Superman is he's just the opposite, basically. So I think it would be very fun, and I could like you could see like the fight scenes being possibly crazy as well. I think it would be a perfect fit. I think they're making a mistake doing this, having Gunn wanted to do his own Batman. I mean, again, he could prove me wrong. I mean, the Superman movie was great, but just based on the little we've heard so far about it, I think this Batman is what this universe needs.
I'll be honest, kind of like, and I get what Shamari's saying, and I think and he's been, I think, in majority. I feel like most of the conversation I've seen on the internet has been like it makes more sense now that Pattinson.
Yeah, like figure it out.
Movie. Like you got to figure this out. Like you have, the two I think most well received characters in superhero world right now is according to my Superman and in Pattinson's Batman, and those are the two of the three biggest superheroes there are with Spider-Man sandwiched in between there somewhere. How do you not find a way to get these two in the movie? But at the same time, I do feel like with the world that has been created, that is not. There are dark moments in this movie for sure, but it is not like a super dark movie in any way. I think it kind of opens it up for a lighter Batman and a lighter Gotham, and a Gotham that could be a little bit more goofy, and a Gotham that could be a little bit more fun. A Gotham that I think I see so many people compare this movie, and I think accurately, to Superman the animated series, and feeling like this movie feels like an episode of Superman the animated series. I feel like seeing this movie opens up the possibility of doing a movie that feels a lot like Batman the animated series. And I think I'd want to see how they could make that happen. Now, I've gone through all the things that have annoyed me about their plan for this Batman Brave and the Bold. I don't like that he's way older than Clark. I don't like that his son is Robin, like as opposed to Dick Grayson or Tim Drake or literally almost anybody else. But I still would want to see the world of Gotham that they could create that I think would be very different potentially from the world that Matt Reeves created, which is phenomenal, a world I love and a world I want to see continue, but is very serious and takes itself very seriously. I kind of like the idea of actually bringing in a Batman that would be from a different world that maybe doesn't take itself quite as seriously. I don't know. Where do you stand on this kind
of? I think after seeing the movie, I think after it's funny. After seeing Penguin, I was like, we gotta figure this thing out. I'm on Shamari's bandwagon. Like, I don't need another Batman. But I think after seeing this movie, I am open to the idea of what another Batman would look like. Right. Now again, as I've said, I think I said on the show when last week or whenever we talked about Matt Reeves' whole situation in terms of him not just finishing the script. I was like, the best thing that happened to James Gunn was Matt Reeves not coming out with his movie and not taking so long to come out with it, because it's given time for him to create his own narrative, right? And now again, I'm open to seeing what that looks like. I agree with you, EJ, that tonally you can create a Gotham that is different from the Pattinson Reeves universe, but it's still representative of Gotham and still different than Metropolis. And the casting is the most important part of it, right? And I've said that for a long time now when it comes to this second Batman, that I think it's got to be somebody recognizable. Now, again, with the job that he did with Corn Sweat, like, I'm going to give Gunn the benefit of the doubt and say that, look, if he cast some guy I've never heard of as Batman, or whoever he cast, and even if I don't think it looks good on paper, or if I've never heard of him, I'm just going to have to trust it. But my gut tells me, like, yeah, if you put like a Batman that is recognizable, an actor in there next to Corn Sweat, and say this is like a world's finest movie, after Brave and the Bold, like, I think you're talking about, I mean, count the money, right? Now, again, you could say that with Pattinson as well. I don't know if it's a guarantee, if it's a lock, if you cast somebody that we don't know, right? Again, I've mentioned Jake Gyllenhaal, Glenn Powell's name has been thrown out there. Like, I think a lot of these guys are maybe a tinge too young for a Damian Wayne to be running around, but whatever. Again, I don't think we should have a Damian Wayne.
Do you see the guy that put his name in the ring? I used the ring word intentionally.
The Viper?
The Viper.
The Viper.
Randy Orton. He said he wants to be DCU's Batman.
Yeah, I know. And people were pushing it.
I know one thing. God help any Gotham goon that crosses the Viper. I mean, you want to talk about the intensity of interrogation scene involving Randy Orton? I don't know if he can act, but if he can bring any of that intensity he brings to his wrestling character to Batman, that would be a scary sight for villains and goons alike in Gotham City.
But yeah, no, that, to me, I think I'm open to it, but it could go either way. I'm not like totally one way or the other, but I think I'm now more excited for Brave and the Bold than I was right? I'm more excited for everything in the DCU than I was before, but for sure, Brave and the Bold was, I think, the one I was probably most apathetic to in general, right? Because again, I was with you. I didn't really want the Damian Wayne thing. Penguin was awesome. The Batman was great. I don't need another Batman. But now it's like, shoot, like this Batman's gonna have a shared universe, right? The other one doesn't, and that's a win for the Brave and the Bold, right? And Matt Reeves, I don't know. I guess he doesn't want one, right? But having a shared universe, having a Batman that can interact with the Justice League and interact with Superman and all these different things is 100% an important thing for DC. So, yeah, I think it definitely evolved that conversation. And real quick on that whole intro, I mean, one, I think the starting out with an opening crawl, kind of like Star Wars, is very smart.
Yeah.
Because again, we didn't know where we were at in this DC world.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the setup of like, you know, metahumans are clearly a very common thing, it seems like, in this world. And so, you know, I'm curious to see how that plays out. And as we always ask with all these superhero movies, I think this movie did a better job than most of kind of giving us like, what is the history of the Superman? Who has he fought?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We don't know exactly, but it seems like it hasn't been a ton of like, you know, super villains, maybe.
Right.
Probably
Maybe
similar to your
maybe
typical.
some aliens, things like that.
Right.
Maybe a villain here or there that's not as, you know, threatening.
Not as serious of a threat.
Or a clone of Superman, things like that. Yeah. It's funny because Ken, you mentioned the kaiju fight is be something that like you didn't love. Like, I think the scene serves a very important purpose though, because I think one is the introduction of the Justice Gang, and so which is already important. But the Justice Gang's introduction in that scene particularly is also super important. I think it really is the juxtaposition of what this man is like in battle versus other superheroes and what they do and how they move. Because in that scene, like, you have Clark kind of playing kid gloves with like this demonic creature, because he's not trying to kill this demonic creature. He wants to try to deal with it in a humane way. And here you got the Justice Gang, funded by Maxwell Lord, that is here on basically business. They're not here to joke around, not here to play around. They're not here to think of, oh, how do we do this humanely? They're like, well, we gotta kill this thing. Well, just go for its eyes, man. Like, just go. Like, they're like, and they almost look at Clark and kind of the way he's acting, almost like a god. This rookie, like, he still doesn't really quite get it, even though he's way stronger than all of them. And they're not like, I don't know, they're not like like the Suicide Squad, but they are more serious. And when it comes to property damage and people that are perhaps collateral damage in these possible instances, they're not super focused on that. They're focused on the major threat, whereas Clark is in that moment doing both. And you see why he is different than other superheroes in that moment. And I think it's important to show how different he is from them, but also how different he is from other superheroes you see from other movies. How many movies have we talked about where we're like, man, like, these superheroes don't care about the cloud damage, they don't even care about the people that are being trampled and stuff. This guy is different. I think James Gunn needed that scene to make that super apparent. I think if he doesn't have that scene, I don't know if you really have the ability to show that, right? Like, whereas the other moments where you see him using that kind of restraint and seeing his frustration when, Mr. Terrific kills the beast with the T-spheres and blowing up its intestines. Like, you don't get that moment in any other way, I think. So, was it the most, like, I think it was a very, like, exciting, fun scene. Was it, like, the greatest scene of all time? No, but I think, Shamari, it was super important for forwarding the plot and forwarding our understanding of who Clark was.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the action scenes in the movie. I thought they were all very well done. And I agree. I think, like you said, the Justice Gang showed up, so we got the introduction to them. We got to see Superman saving all these different people and creatures. Again, at one point, he saved the squirrel.
Yep.
And, like, you got to kind of just see his heart in that way as well. So it kind of showed you more of that. and again, it kind of served as a way for you to see Clark interact with the Justice Gang and kind of see their relationship. And then it also meant to serve as Lex's distraction while he was at the fortress.
Fortress. Yeah.
So that was kind of the plot, I guess, plot reason that
Right.
happened. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed that scene as well. I thought, like I said, I thought all the action scenes were done really well. There wasn't much that I didn't like. All of my dislikes are very nitpicky. There's
Yeah. Same
nothing
here.
for me. There's really nothing significant. Like I probably personally, and this is I guess more artistic touch. I probably could have done without the screaming from Hawk Girl whenever she,
You're the second person that told me that.
yeah, whenever she
I
flies.
didn't. I didn't even notice it the first time I watched the movie. It wasn't until the second time I watched it
Oh,
that I noticed it more.
yeah. So I was like, ooh, okay. I wonder if she's gonna do this every time. And she did it every single time. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. So is that? I thought the thing with Superman and the harem of women kind of joke was kind of strange. But I mean, that felt like a James Gunn thing.
That
I
was
suppose.
like James Gunn sneaking in a little
Yeah.
bit of him.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
not
I
a
was like,
lot
this
of
is a very
I want to
James
talk about
Gunn
James Gunn particularly, but that was a little
thing.
bit of sneaking thing that James Gunn finds funny and interesting into this movie. And there's not a lot of it. I think that was a moment for sure.
Yeah, I was like, why are we talking about Superman having a harem of women? Like, that's very unnecessary. So I thought that was kind of odd. But yeah, other than that, it's hard. It's hard for me to think of things that I thought, and I heard of the criticisms I've heard people say that didn't love the movie. I would agree that there is a lot going on, especially as you get to the end. Like it feels like there's a lot going on. It's like, wow, okay, so this thing is also a version of Superman, and then Lex is like doing all. Then there's a pocket dimension, and then there's a what's his name, Metamorpho was there, and then
You got the
like there was a lot.
Moravians.
Yeah, the Moravians, and Lex is trying to buy. Like there's a lot happening. So I could, and I understand when people say like it was kind of just a lot going on, and I would agree with that. It didn't bother me. I thought it was like the pacing was fine for me, but I could see someone saying like, yeah, it was just like all this stuff.
Yeah, he tried to
but
accomplish a lot.
yeah. But overall, man, again, I thought it all worked really well for me personally. I was very, very impressed. And all the pros outweighed any cons for me. There's very few cons for me for regardless.
I want to get to the Jor-El and in the situation in a second, but first I just want to mention for the show. I told Shamari this. Kendall, you don't know this yet, but when I saw this movie, I got to see the advanced screening. So when I got the tickets were very limited. Obviously, finding tickets that weren't the front row of some place or wasn't in Staten Island. I live, of course, in Queens. It was very challenging because everybody's trying to get these tickets. But I was able to get decent kind of seating tickets for a 3D version of Superman. You guys know it. I hate 3D. I don't really like 3D. It kind of gives me a headache. It's just not for me. I'd prefer to see the movie just regularly. But I said, you know what? Like, this is Superman. I'm gonna see it again. Like, and it's an option to see it early. Like, what's the harm? This is just see 3D, see how it goes. I get to the theater. I walk into it, and it's a 4DX theater. I don't know if I've ever been in a 4DX movie before.
You got the 4DX experience?
Yeah, I don't know if I've been in a 4DX movie. Maybe I have, but I have. It's been a long time. But I did not remember what that entailed. I think a lot of the folks also didn't know if this was actually going to be a 4D experience because we all bought tickets for a 3D movie. We're in a 4DX theater. It's very clear it's a 4DX theater. But I think, well, maybe it's just a 4DX theater where they're showing this special movie, but it's just going to be 3D. It was not just a movie they were just showing in 3D. This was a full 4DX Superman movie. And let me just say, if you're okay with being bumped around and moved around a little bit, take the opportunity to see this movie in 4DX. It changes the entire dynamic. Now, I've seen the movie twice. I've seen it in a regular picture as well. Action, I think, still is phenomenal even in the regular picture. But seeing this movie in the 4DX and feeling every punch, every kick, every single thing that happens, and they do a phenomenal job of meeting that action with that experience. When Superman is the first scene when he's calling for Crypto and Crypto is rumbling, your chair is rumbling. And then Crypto jumps on your back those 2 or 3 times. It felt like when my dog wakes me up jumping on my back 2 or 3 times. You're getting kicked literally in the back. You're flying through the Arctic. Mist is spraying into your face. You're flying through the air and you have wind being sprayed into your ears. It is a truly immersive experience. And it's funny, I actually saw James Gunn about 2 days or 1 or 2 days before I was going to see the movie. He actually posted on social media like, wow, I just experienced like the 3D and 4DX experience of this movie. Like, this is incredible. Like, I really hope people get a chance to do this. Like, this is amazing. I didn't realize that, I guess he didn't, like, that's not something he's involved with quite as much. I would assume he's involved in everything. He got to deal with it for the first time like I did, just literally days after, days before when I did it. Go check it out. It like, I will say, don't get a big ass bucket of popcorn, because my small bag of popcorn, about the first quarter of it, 5 minutes of the movie, was in the next guy's lap, because you're just being thrown around, you're flying around, and it's a lot going on. That Brave and Hammer fight, my popcorn was at basically half gone. I was like, and so I had to basically hold the top box, the top of the popcorn bag. I had to hold it like I'm clipping like a potato chip bag. I had to hold it like that to make sure no more popcorn was flying all over the place. Several times my phone fell out of my pocket. I was nervous about where my phone was, but yeah, I'll say that was a crazy experience. So if you ever get an opportunity, I will say check out 4DX. It is worth it. It was a ton of fun. But on the Moravia conflict, and it really is the center of the movie, right? It's the center of how Lex is able to involve Superman, and he, as he says, like, I didn't, I didn't start I didn't get to you to start the braving, complex. I started the braving complex, so I can kill you. And we know he has these relationships with Moravia and the other country. There are a lot of parallels to the conflict going on with Israel and Palestine. Also, I think with Russia and Ukraine as well, where you have this powerful country that is threatening to invade this other country and quote unquote liberate them from terrorism and slavery and things of that nature. These are, again, the simple things here in today's geopolitical climate. And it's Superman who inserts himself into this, conflict that creates all the drama. He apparently weeks before stopped the war from happening, where Bravia was trying to invade, and that is where this Moravian hammer that Lex Luthor creates, who is ultimately Ultraman, comes in and fights Superman on behalf of Moravia to kind of maybe continue the negative press on Superman that he is inserting himself in conflicts that don't involve the United States government, don't involve any political figures. He's kind of working unilaterally, and when you have an alien doing this who has no guardrails or no one to answer to, there's concern with that. And those are the concerns that Lois brings up. Those are the concerns that Lex tries to bring about when he talks to the Security Council as well. Even though they're saying, "Listen, Superman's popular, so unfortunately we're not going to deal with this guy." Kendall, what did you make of kind of how the Moravian aspect of this movie played out, and did you think that it fit with everything else that was going on?
Oh, 100%. That was one of those things that, again, James Gunn thought a lot about, and clearly was something that was, was probably something that was in the movie for a long time. Clearly one of the core concepts and principles of this story was this idea of superhero, it's funny, me and our brother Henry, we talk about Avatar a lot, and we talk about the idea of if they ever decided to do a new one and they had an evil Avatar, right? Like, what would that look like? And can the Avatar be inherently good, right? What does inherently good even mean, right? Because in the story of Avatar, the Avatar is supposed to be quote unquote inherently good, but what does that even mean, right? In all conflicts, there's a good side and a bad side on both ends of the spectrum, right? There's always some gray area with everything to some degree, right? And so I feel like he kind of used that same concept here, where it's Superman, we all understand Superman is inherently good. He means no harm in any situation. But like that interview scene that you mentioned with Lois Lane really illustrated like as much as Superman is trying to do the right thing and she understands he's trying to do the right thing. Like she also was playing the devil's advocate of like, yeah, but like this is the other side.
You're inserting yourself into a world of gray.
Right, exactly. That, you know, and when you do that, now all of a sudden you create another image of yourself that you're this guy who's the iron fist of I make the call for everybody around the world. And what does that, you know, portray? Right. And so that was an interesting, you know, kind of thought exercise that I thought James Gunn put out there that I just thought I played really, really well in the movie. I thought at the end, it's hard. Like I thought he created an interesting dilemma, but I wonder if like not having Superman ultimately like really involved in the braving thing at the end was kind of like, I don't know. It was just weird. You know, it's like they were trying to figure out how do we like climax this thing, but while also creating a thing. Like I don't know.
Can I tell you why?
The Justice Game showed up.
Yeah, can I tell you why I really liked it? Because at first I was fine with the end, but it wasn't like something that I was super like gung ho about it being amazing. But then I saw someone else's perspective on it, and I think they really nailed the hammer on the head. What you're supposed to take away from Superman is that not only is he a force of good, but he is someone that inspires other people to do good and do the right thing. Because we see in this movie that the Justice Gang is not this almighty force of good. First of all, I mean, they're funded by Maxwell Lord, so they can't be. Just alone. That alone puts like a shadow of gray over them, right? But like when Superman is locked up, they're like, we're not saving him. It's like, but he's locked up in like a pocket universe that is terrible and is run by Lex Luthor. And they're like, listen, we're not going to get involved with the American government and just break people out of federal prisons. Are you insane? Which on the surface is fair. Like it's a fair assessment. And Lois making the points earlier about, you know, Baravia and the other movie Jangapar and how that was a morally great situation, and Superman involving himself, you know, created a lot of conflicts and a lot of different situations that are problematic. This is the situation that the Justice Gang would never get involved in, but they get involved because they are inspired by Superman to do good. Like Superman makes everyone around him better. He's like Jason Kidd. He's like Magic Johnson. So like I like that scene because it showed that he not only just had an influence on the people that are immediately near him, but he has influence on these people that had become his allies who at times did not want to go that extra mile. And them seeing the conflict and seeing how bad things got after they already turned their back on him and saying, you know what, like Superman, these people are going to get hurt and Superman cares about these people and someone has to do something. And they rise up thanks to Rex, who probably, went there also to say, hey, like maybe we can do something about this. Like, and they made the call and he convinced them. He convinces Rex to be a better person. He convinces the Justice Gang to be a better person, and they are able to stand up to him. Because while he is Superman, he is not perfect. He can't be in two places at once. He's gonna need help, and he gets help from the Daily Planet. He gets help from the Justice Gang. He inspires all these different people to help, and I think that was why. Then when I thought about it, I said, "You know what? That was actually great. It was really great that it showed that Superman is legitimately making the world a better place because he's even making the heroes of this world better. If Superman wasn't around, those heroes let those people die in John Parr, and we don't even think about it. They only are helped because of Superman's influence. Even though that kid's holding up the flag and he's waiting for Superman, Superman did come. He just didn't come in person, but his influence is there, and his influence is why those people are saved. And that was why I thought that scene worked 100%.
And I also like the realism of he can't be everywhere at once. He can't. He's not.
There you go.
He's Superman, but he's still a man. He's still a man. Like he can't be in 20 places at once, and he can't save everyone. But again, it kind of shows the importance of him having allies, and him kind of trying to, as you said, EJ, spread his influence and seek help from others. So So yeah,
And it shows the importance of a Justice League. Like
Yeah.
like now you see, oh yeah, right. Like you do need a Justice League. You need because you can't have like him all over the place. He's the greatest metahuman, but he is still only one metahuman. So yeah, I actually end up really liking how that scene played out, and seeing those heroes take like that kind of pride in stopping evil happening across the world, something that they would have normally never done. I actually really like that.
What do you guys? We talked about the Batman piece of it, but you mentioned the Justice League. Like, what do you guys make of like what is the future of the Justice League and the Justice Gang? Like, how is this going to work? Because again, James Gunn clearly put a lot of thought into the DC universe, right? He's not going in through this flippantly and one movie at a time and just working and creating things as he goes along. Like, I think he has a plan when he created the Justice League or the Justice Gang. And they go to the Hall of Justice and there's murals of all these different, seemingly retro characters from that universe. Like, what do you think the end goal? I mean, obviously the end goal is to get to the Justice League, and we've heard that. But like, how do you think they get there?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, so James Gunn talked to Wall Street Journal. He said the goal was to introduce Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman kind of on their own, and to eventually bring them together to form a Justice League and make a Justice League movie, which is not splitting the atom.
Seen that movie before.
Like, yeah, that is what you would normally do. Just like the same thing that Marvel did with their movies before they came up with the Avengers. Obviously easier said than done. We saw Zack Snyder's attempt and how much that didn't work out for him and work out for Warner Media as a whole. James Gunn has said that he has a massive, big project that is being worked on that he can't talk about because he doesn't want the idea to get stolen. I watched the Justice Gang stuff, and I wonder if somehow he thinks that the Thunderbolts was stolen. I wonder if he feels like what they did with the Thunderbolts was what he was going to do with Maxwell Lord Justice Gang. Or whatever he's going to call them, Justice League of America, maybe. Like, because I think there are similarities to the New Avengers and the Justice Gang. Like,
so what did he say? What did James Gunn say? I didn't see this.
He said that there's a big project that's being done. I'm not even sure that the project is Justice League of America with these characters. I don't know.
Right.
But he said that there's a project that we're working on that we're really excited about that we're not going to talk about though because we don't want the idea to get stolen. Which I'm like, there's only literally one other place that can steal the idea. There's no other studio that can steal the ideas of superhero comic other than Marvel. So he's worried that Marvel will steal the idea. It's like, well, what is like? Why would he say that? That's a weird thing to say. Just like brought up, kind of like just unprompted. And I'm not saying that this is the project, but it made me wonder if he had plans at one point in time to do a Justice League of America movie with Maxwell Lord Justice League, and that like when New Avengers came out, he was like, "This is the idea I had." Like, how did this get leaked or how whatever? It made me wonder. I know they've been trying to Thunderbolts for a while, but just how Thunderbolts turned into New Avengers and how that happened, I just wonder if he watched that and said, "Interesting," because I watched this Justice Gang and their formation and who's their leader, and it feels very similar. It feels very much like like bootleg Justice League, just like the New Avengers, like this bootleg Avengers. These characters that are they're good, but they're kind of morally gray in many ways. But they have a lot to meet. Like there's similarities. It made me wonder. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no. That's interesting. Because there's two things there. Like, on one hand, like obviously, a lot of people thought Thunderbolts was a rip from Suicide Squad, right? But then when you see it, there's differences in how it's done and how it's structured.
Yeah.
And it's like somewhere in between the Justice Gang and the Suicide Squad is where the Thunderbolts probably fall. But, and then what's to me the other interesting aspect of it is that like I came away watching like the Justice Gang and again getting flashback to something like The Boys and things of that nature. Again, this idea of like the corporate superhero and everything, and it was the same vibe that you get from Thunderbolts as well, right? And so I think that there's also a lot of similarities in that, and some inspiration from that show playing into both of these two movies. But yeah, I definitely see some similarities. I'm curious what that movie is that they are planning. that he doesn't, like you said, that he doesn't want stolen. I mean,
Yeah, so it's a secret
and
project.
secret, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's not something that's been announced.
Because
They don't want it. They don't want to give it away.
yeah,
They don't
because
want
everything
it
DC and Marvel do, like, there's a copycat version of everything. To some degree, like maybe not a one for one copycat, but there's some.
These comic book, these comic writers wrote for both, so they're literally doing
Right.
Yes.
They're literally doing the same. They're doing both sides, but also they're inspired by each other. They're seeing what the other side is doing.
Yes.
Writing their own thing. Yeah, he said
the one character I've always said would be very interesting is like the Question. Now we know we've talked about this before, but like that's somebody that I could see them being like, nobody's done anything like this before, you know. But other than that, I'm like, man, I feel like we've seen
like a really true detective movie.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess the Batman's the closest one, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously we know they're doing Teen Titans, right? Like, I would have said Teen Titans, but he's already announced that.
Yeah, the quote he said was, "My favorite thing has not been announced at all. There was one thing I knew about from the beginning, and that when I pitched David Zaslav what the DC would be, I pitched to him, but we did not announce in that first meeting because I felt like it was too easy to rip off by another company, and so that's one of the main things."
That feels like something big, right? I mean, I know he says it's big, but like that feels like it's not like.
I mean, James Gunn is so
like
unpredictable.
Inside baseball,
he got to DC. He was like, "I got to do Creature Commandos right now."
Creature Commandos,
like
first
what?
thing we're doing.
Yeah, you know, and like we gotta have a movie on the Authority. We can talk about the Engineer and Ultraman soon, but like we say that, but at the same time, like he is greenlit and discussed some very off ball type stuff. So I don't know.
And I will say that was something that. Well, we'll talk about that at the end. I have something I'm going to say, but I'll save it.
I want to talk about.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any idea either what it could be. Kind of, I agree. Teen Titans would have been my guess, but we know they're making that. I would say maybe something female led, maybe like a female team of some kind. And though I know we got the Harley Quinn, whatever that thing was years ago.
Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah, the Birds of Prey, Gotham City Sirens, something along those lines. Outside of something like that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, DC's already made a lot of.
They've done Aquaman, they've done Flash.
We've done Aquaman, we did Flash, we did Flashpoint. At this
point,
you
know what else it could be? I don't think it's this. I'd be very shocked if it is. But the one thing that people have wanted them to do, DC, that we haven't seen yet, and that would be kind of a semi-interesting thing, would be like, obviously, look, a lot of people wanted them to do a Green Arrow movie, right? That's been it's been a thing a lot of people wanted to see. But specifically with Green Arrow, a lot of people wanted to see the Green Arrow Escape from Supermax story told in a movie, right? And if James Gunn said, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to cast like somebody really big to play Oliver Queen, and we're gonna make this like a really interesting, like kind of like that, Running Man movie is coming out with Glenn Powell, like this really like hectic, like breakneck, Green Arrow movie, like. But like if we announce it too early, maybe somebody will say, yeah, we'll do this with Marvel will say we'll do this with Black Widow or something like that. Like I don't know, like it may be a very specific story with a specific character. They may say where we can't.
Possible.
Release that.
That's possible.
But every other major character they've done.
I mean, another thing I just thought of is maybe New Gods, possibly. I don't know if we saw anything like that.
I don't really want to see that, but
is Ava DuVernay back in the fold, or how does that work?
No shot.
Yeah, I imagine no shot. People have been clamoring. It's so funny seeing some of these. First of all, we gotta say this too, man. Like for those folks, I don't know, because I guess they could just be. I don't blame the reporters. Reporters they're just getting what they're being told. But the people that were spreading the misinformation about what was going on with this movie, this movie's a mess. DC is panicking. Warner Media, they don't know if they're gonna be able to roll out the DCU after this movie. To me now, I feel like I'm never listening to these reports ever again. it's so obvious and so clear that these are folks that clearly had an agenda. I don't know how anybody could have watched this movie and thought, oh, this movie's not going to work for the fans.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
come
Now,
on,
now
man.
what I'll say is, do you like? It's always hard to say, right? Because it was this movie improved on, right? You know, like it. I mean, I don't think it was a mess 3 months
It's
ago,
not a
but
movie.
maybe
It's
I
not a
don't know,
movie
or
we've
5 months ago.
we haven't heard about a bunch of reshoots. We haven't heard about a bunch of characters being cut out of the movie. Like those are.
But
not
we know they
things
changed
that-
even like in the trailer, right? Where they throw the thing, where they throw the throw the rock at Superman and he flinches, and
Yeah, he flinches.
you know they changed that so he doesn't flinch. Like so, it's possible that James Gunn also really took a lot of feedback, right? And yeah, I'm not saying that that's the case, but it's always such an impossible thing, right? Whenever you have anything anonymous and these things that we have never seen, it's like I don't know.
But for me, it's
Can I
also
believe
like,
any of it?
I mean, it's also like those other things we were hearing when they were saying BVS was like the best movie ever. Was gonna like save
standing ovations at the
standing ovations,
test screenings.
stuff like that. Where I'm just like, can you believe like any of this stuff? Like,
No, the answer is no, Sham. I'm not taking anything
I don't know.
that I hear about this stuff anymore. And quite frankly, we've seen it with some of these Marvel projects. Like we heard that Echo was the worst thing ever, and that Ironheart was the worst thing ever, and those were actually, ironically, two of the better Disney Plus projects. So, like, you hear some of this stuff, and it's just BS. These are people that are behind the scenes with agendas that are pushing narratives that I don't think are based on reality. Like, it's not to say that something won't be true just because a dead clock is right twice a day, but I think all the trailer stuff and all the promo stuff we saw looked amazing. The only trepidation was just this loud chorus of people who were anonymous behind the scenes that are saying, "Oh no, behind the scenes, people are real nervous. Like the DCU may be dead on arrival." Like we did topics like, "Is the DCU dead on arrival if Superman flops?" Which I think we all said yes. Like, you can't possibly have this thing work out. And this thing, I saw a clip. Actually, someone posted a clip. Shout out to John Campia. Someone posted a clip of John Campia from I think 2010. And I think he said he was like, I guess they were doing AMC movie talk about that time. He was like, if they do Batman and Superman and that movie flops, DC Universe dead, and it's gonna take another 10 years before you can do another DC Universe reboot and fix everything. And it's crazy because of how prophetic it was. And then and one of the people was like, "Oh, that's not gonna happen." He's like, "I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if it does, DCU done. DCU done. There's nothing you can do. It's over. You're gonna have to start over from scratch. It's gonna take 10 years to reboot." And it could not have been more right. That was basically gonna be what we're gonna be talking about today. If this movie was what people were saying it was behind the scenes for these last 3 or 4 months. Again, we do this podcast every week or so, and we talk about this stuff. We found stuff every week, and I kept saying, I think this movie's gonna be great. I think DCU is gonna be fire. Everything I'm hearing, and then I hear this other stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, damn, maybe I'm wrong." The little people were just—I don't know if they were Snyder acolytes that were just trying to get their spin out there. But we gotta be careful with who we even listen to. With the people talking about what's gonna be good and what's not good, because this movie was great. Yes, they could have changed something. I know James Gunn said that in the test screenings, like there's a scene where one of the, I assume it's the engineer punches Crypto, and the crowd really didn't like that, and he took that out. He thought maybe it was too violent. But those are small
James Gunn didn't he learn from Guardians 3.
But like these are things where it's like, okay, like that's not a thing that makes someone either hate or like a movie. Like I'm like, they made it sound, they were saying they was a mess and that it was terrible and that DC's in a lot of trouble, and that could not have been further from the truth. Anyway, I had to get that down there. But real quickly though, I want to talk about Jor-El and the L's and their place in this, and I want to talk about the Kents as well. I think in many ways they're related. The
Massive retcon
and the tape situation. First of all, like I told Shamari, I'll say this here, I really love what they set up in the movie with the L's initially, which was like he sits there as he heals and he listens to the message that his parents gave him, and it's this almost this ode that they've given to him, and he's able to repeat it. To me, it almost reminded me of like the Green Lantern, like him repeating this thing before he goes out to battle to do good. I just thought it was really a neat thing to add to like the Superman Kryptonian lore. Like I thought that made sense for him. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I actually think that this is almost like his war cry before he goes out and tries to save the world. But then they make the twist where he only knows a part of the message. The rest of the message is about him, take ruling with iron fists and taking what's his, and the people who don't listen to him, like put them down, and spread your genetics across the world and have multiple wives, so you can do that, so the Kryptonian Empire would never sleep. And it's a lot of very dark, disturbing, weird things that I think people, when they think of, I think people think of Krypton maybe not so much as like benevolent, but I think people do think of the elves as benevolent. Like they were the folks who realized that Krypton was exploding, and they weren't listening to the scientists, and they were smart enough to be able to keep their baby, both Cal and Kal-El Zor-El, out of Krypton. Like they had the foresight to even do that because these other people were idiots. This shines a different light on them, and I will say this. And this has been a conflicting thing that people have been fighting about, and there was going to be something that's going to be controversial in this movie. I think this has definitely been the thing. I still am not sold that is the message they delivered to him, in my opinion. The movie plays it straight, to be fair, so I could just be wrong. I'm like totally okay with that. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, like blah blah, and I'm also not going to be mad if I'm wrong. But they play it straight. They make it clear that hey, because Lex is the person flipper. So all right, well Lex is saying that it's right. Like, who they know what they know. But like, no, it's all these linguist experts who do it. And then Mr. Terrific's like, no, the linguist experts got it right. They're not going to mess this up. Like, that means it's definitely true. They play it straight as if this is definitely what their message was to him. And again, there's a story point that his dad, Pa Kent, Jonathan Kent, it relays that is very important. That like what makes Superman great is that like he wanted the best out of that message, and he took the best out of that message. And it's not about what the message that he said; it's about what he took from the message and how he's applied it. Which he's applied it to do incredible things. Again, it's a beautiful. It's just a beautiful, like interpretation. Just him in that scene. Also, one of my favorite scenes from the movie. By the way, a not so subtle to me slick shot at Zack Snyder. And there's I think 2 in the movie. There's not many. There's 2. The Jonathan Kent scene is an obvious shot when he says the line of it's not parents' role to say how the kid should act in moments of whatever. And I'm like, that is clearly a shot at this decision of had Jonathan Kent say, no, don't save me, like let me die, so because we can't afford you to be discovered as Superman. Like he's saying that it's not my decision to tell you how to move around the world. Like that is for you to figure out. And I was like, well, that's clearly a shot at the other interpretation that was done of Superman. But it's the most controversial, I think, thing in this movie. If they play it straight, I don't personally mind it because I think what we've seen from the one of my favorite iterations of Superman right now and just of all time is right now still My Adventures of Superman, and they definitely play up Krypton and the elves as like not the greatest people and not the greatest force, obviously. So I'm kind of cool with the idea that like the elves can be maybe not the greatest people because remember they are aliens from a different world, and different worlds have different like sets of values, not values that I agree with or values that I like or anybody I think could respond to. But I think it would be weird though to just assume that these aliens from a different world, a world that like was so terrible that they really didn't know that it was exploding, they ignored their own scientists, would be full of just all benevolent people or whatever. Like the first part of the message is very inspirational. It's just the last part of it that has all this terrible stuff. I am not playing it straight. I think that there's a chance that the message was still doctored somehow, or that the transcription was somehow wrong. I think that there is a possibility that has happened. Someone made it, actually John Roca made this point that I think would be very compelling. What if Brainiac was the one who somehow distorted that message to say what it said? Because that sounds like a very Brainiac type way about how to view expanding the influence of Krypton, which I thought was very compelling and could definitely be a factor as to what happened, especially when you consider the engineer was like almost like losing control and couldn't like function when she was still coding the rest of the message. There are a lot of things that can go. I don't think that the story is done or written completely yet with that message. But how did you guys take the message and what it meant for the champ?
To me, I was
Yeah, you can go ahead, Kenneth.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that this was something that was rumored going into the movie, like months ago. Somebody had said something about like, yeah, this was, yeah. And I remember I hinted at it. I didn't want to say it because I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna be a spoiler. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I don't know how big, if it is a thing. Yeah, how big of a thing it was gonna be in the movie. But there was talk that like, oh, like that they're gonna take from, they're gonna make the Kryptonians, the Viltrumites from Invincible. They're gonna make them, the Saiyans from Dragon Ball, and that they were going to make them, same like you just said, similar to My Adventures with Superman. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, I remember telling Henry, our brother, I was like, oh boy, I don't know how it's going to be received, man. Like, that's a massive retcon. And seeing it play out in the movie, I was sitting next to Henry, I looked over, I was like, see, like, they're doing it, man, in the Viltrumite. But it didn't, it really wasn't as like aggressive, obviously, as those are. It's not like Jor-El or somebody came over from another planet ready to conquer Earth or anything. But they played into that idea. And again, I don't think it. It's been pretty. I think it's been pretty. I mean, the movie obviously has been well received in general. And I haven't seen too many detractors from that specific point, but to me, it didn't really take away from the movie at all. Like you said, it's a logical take, regardless of whether or not it's comic accurate. It's it's a very possible logical change that if you want to make your version of it slightly different while still illustrating the core concept of the Superman character, which is again him embracing the human side of him. I thought that was a smart change to make. Again, I'm a little surprised that it worked, because when I heard it in its concept, I was like, oh boy, like this isn't going to play well. They're really trying to, one, because it's like we've seen this thing now play out a couple of times now, especially again very prominently with Invincible. But I was also surprised when like you said, EJ, I thought that they were gonna pull the bait and switch. That was almost too obvious, and the way they kept hammering home, like, no, yeah, it's real. Mr. Terrific being like, yeah, the friends of guys, I know these guys, right? To me, even that was like, I thought that line was strange, because I was like, Mr. Terrific, man, you're like, how do you know, right? I know he's supposed to be super smart, but it's like,
yeah, this literally just happened 2 minutes ago. How do you know who?
Yeah, it's like you have no information, no context. Yeah. And you're just like, yeah, I know the forensics guys. I'm like, which forensics guys?
Yeah, trust me, bro.
This, right? Like, it almost too. Yeah, so I thought that was strange, but again, they were really trying to hammer home, and I still thought, oh, maybe there'll be a bait and switch, and there really wasn't. And like, so I wonder. I'm not as convinced that they'll change it now, because I almost feel like that's something you introduce in the movie. You have to at least throw in a slight bit of skepticism about its validity for you to change it. When the movie, like after the movie, right? Now the Brainiac thing is interesting, right? Because that is something that potentially would have been something that was introduced in this movie, right? Like a tease, that was introduced potentially, where it's like they can go back and say, yeah, no, this was there the whole time. You guys just missed it. But if they just come out somehow and just say, oh, actually, we found out it was Doctor, I'd be like, really? Like, you guys told us 100% without. You had the smartest guy in the universe come out and tell us there's no way this thing could have been faked without having looked at it himself. But, and now all of a sudden you're telling me it's, now again, if it's Brainiac, then maybe I'll give it a pass. But, but yeah, that to me, I feel like it's going to be legit. And it also makes sense because, again, the Kryptonians being the like you said, the Kryptonians being this way is not a foreign concept. It's more specifically the L's sending that message specifically, right? Like you said, that's where My Adventures with Superman comes in. And I thought that when we first saw Bradley Cooper as Jor-El, another thing that was, we had heard months ago that he was supposed to be in it. But when we saw Bradley Cooper as Jor-El, and he was speaking in Kryptonian, I was like, this reminds me of My Adventures with Superman, right? Where he doesn't understand the message when he first is watching it, and eventually, he finds a way to translate it. I watched this movie, came away being like, I can see why James Gunn hasn't canceled the show yet, right? Because Like it's close enough to what he's trying to do that it's not running counter to the. Yeah. Honestly, being like, you know what, this is a good idea. Like, I'll take this.
I told Shamar that a lot of this movie. I told Shamar that this movie gave me a lot of feel for My Adventures of Superman, like the relationship between like Jimmy, Lois, and Clark, and the Daily Bugle, like. And like I told Shamar, like it could very well be that these are two excellent Superman iterations, or they're just doing a great job and they happen to be similar. But I think that there was some inspiration that he took.
And I think some of the similarities that also come is that, again, these really do feel like new age Superman stories, right? And I say that in that like a lot of the Superman stuff, especially the best stuff, is from a different era, right? Obviously the Christopher Reeve movie. The Donner movie, that's a long time ago, right? A different world, Superman Returns even is a long time ago from where we are now. And Man of Steel, while it's a more modern movie, doesn't really, I feel like, embrace some of the modern iconography.
No, in many ways, it's very much inspired by Superman 2.
Exactly. And so this movie is like, no, like we're going to have a psycho tech billionaire that is like, almost like, I'm not gonna say he's part influencer, but like clearly has like, clearly is tapped in with like optics and like entertainment and television and politics and all that, all these different things he's tapped into, similar to other figures we have in our society, these oligarchy type figures.
Oh yeah. Like him Lex sitting there with the TV host guy who happened to be the guy he just was doing his interview with, like in his office. Like, doesn't that remind you of like Sean Hannity, having lunch with Trump, or lunch like when he's got Tucker Carlson like sitting down with Trump? Like, it's supposed to be like a non-biased thing. He's just hanging out in his office like. That I was like, oh, this is like exactly what that is. Superman comes up, the guy's just there. I'm like, weren't you the unbiased journalist? Like, what the hell are you doing hanging out at Luthor Corps? But like they tapped into a lot of the things that we're dealing with in our society today.
And again, the monkey bots, right? Like ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept, but again, it tapped into today's day and age, right? Like in many ways, this Jimmy Olsen was not as much the old school paperboy character, but is now a more modern version of his character. Like, I think that's all these, both that and then obviously My Adventures of Superman taps into that extremely well, also. And so there's a lot of similarities with the two, and I think, like you said, they're both really, really well done in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the when it comes to the Jor-El thing, like that was another element that maybe I guess I would say I wasn't like the biggest fan of. I'm more of a fan of the good L's, I guess you could say. Like just in general, like
Vegeta. King Vegeta.
Yeah, I don't the Saiyans, the Saiyan arc L's, like that's a version of the L's. Like, I don't know. In general, I prefer the good L's as opposed to these more like, I guess you could say evil, the evil Viltrumite, whatever version, version of the L's that we're getting. But yeah, no, it definitely came as a surprise to me. This is another thing. EJ, I remember, of course, in our discussion, I mentioned that to you. I was like, I thought that was a very controversial thing. I was like, I don't know how people are going to feel about this. With the L's apparently just being like evil or something, like that's a big diversion from Superman's origin that we're used to, that I've seen. I think maybe My Adventures of Superman would be like a good like primer for that, to like kind of get people like a little bit more familiar with something like that, because I'd never seen anything like that,
and a good
except
primer for that too, like. I was gonna say, good primer for that too is also what we've seen with what people have done with the Waynes. We've seen more people do stuff with like, their allegiances with the Court of Owls, and like, the Waynes weren't exactly who you thought they were. Like they've done a lot more. What do you say?
Right.
Yeah, I mean they've done a lot more with that stuff as well, where they want to play with
Right.
the background. And I think in some ways to kind of show that hey, like these guys they weren't just born to be great. Like they were taken, they were put into this world, and the world spat them out what it spat out, and they still decided to be great people. Which is a
Yeah.
great message. Like it's a good message, but again, it is so counter to what we're used to knowing. Like the Waynes were just like
Yeah.
doctors and rich people who were perfectly fine. They got gunned down, and the L's were just scientists who were ignored. And then their plane blew up. There was nothing bad necessarily about them. But it's like what I told you before, Sam. Like I'm not considering trying to defend the L's. Like the message is terrible, but like I took it as more they're like almost like they're not an advanced civilization when it comes to like that level of like morality. Like they're advanced when it comes to science and when it comes to certain things. But to me, they're alien situation, they're alien race that is not that advanced, and they have very backwards and primitive views of like how to create influence on the world. Like I'm sure, like I think the L's are probably the better Kryptonians than the rest of the Kryptonians. Who will probably even
That's I think the key, right? Like
that's supposed to be the vibe,
because
I think.
a lot of our portrayal of the L's, like this change isn't going to really change much about like the future of the DC, right? The DC universe, because unless like they want to do flashbacks on Krypton, and if they do flashbacks on Krypton, like you said, EJ, I don't think like the portrayal of the L's is going to be like them as these like sadistic,
Right.
world conquering, monarchs or something like that. Like I think they're probably the same. They'll probably be portrayed in a very similar light than they have in the past, right? And so it's just the message, the context, who's heard it. Like he just decided to tweak that to create more paranoia around Superman, right? And so,
Right.
but it like My Adventure with Superman took a very extreme route with Supergirl, for example. I'm not going to get too into it. I haven't even finished it, but just got the spoilers and everything. But like Supergirl, comes from that same background in that show as well, right? And starts out maybe as a bit of an antagonist, where as like I mean, we'll get to Supergirl in this, but like it's not like they're doing that, right? It's not like doing Supergirl's going to come in ready to fight, ready to conquer Earth with Kal-El or anything like that, right? So,
Right.
If they did all that, then I'd say that's going to be very controversial, right? But it seems like they're just we come from a planet that might be, might be a certain way, but look, Clark's like I don't really know much about that planet, so again, similar to Goku.
I mean, yeah. I mean that's true. I mean it didn't like take a whole lot away from the movie. I just thought it was definitely something where
Clear
I'm like,
retcon,
oh, wow,
clear
okay.
change.
Yeah, like I was like, all right, so he has some not great origins. Like that's a very big, very significant diversion. I mean, you speaking of Supergirl, I am wondering how this will. Because I was thinking about that too. I was like, because we're getting a Supergirl movie, we know it's Supergirl's origin. She remembers Krypton.
She's
she remembers
older.
her parents. She remembers
Yeah,
her family. Like, yeah. So, like, I'm wondering how that's going to affect her story. I wonder if Gunn and I forget whoever's doing the Supergirl movie, if we even know at this point, how that's going to affect like their version of Supergirl, whatever Supergirl story they're going to tell. Because now we know the L's are not great people, or
It's
at least
100% going to have an impact, right?
compared to what we're used to. So I'm wondering about that too. Um, but I also, and EJ, we talked about this as well. I also thought that story decision had a good effect on. I think it actually had a positive effect on the Ma and Pa Kent storyline.
It did.
Because it kind of helps with that kind of, as you guys were saying, like you deciding who you want to be, and them really being his family, like them really being his parents and being his found family, and showing that these like kind of like adoptive families are families, like they're families.
Yeah.
Like he sees them as his parents, and we see even at that touching scene at the end of the movie with him watching all his memories and stuff. Like I thought that was a very touching and impactful scene, and I thought that it did end up serving a like playing a role in that story as well that I thought worked very well.
Yeah, I mean, Ma and Pa Kent. That's what giving the heart emoji. Like I love this new iteration I don't know new iteration, but this take on them that was way more folksy, way more country. But I actually, it was just kind of striking at first, where I was like, okay, this is not, this is not the usual like mom and pop Ken I'm familiar with. But I think this version, I got to give James Gunn a lot of credit. I got to eat a lot of crow. Felt more realistic to what like folks from the middle of Kansas who are working around 2025 how they would be, right? And the fact that they don't really know the technology well with the cell phone and being on speaker and not understanding who's on speaker and again the thick accents, and I think even the double wide trailer I actually ended up really liking. I really loved that scene where he shows up and he's obviously super sick because of the kryptonite poisoning. And even though he's sick, like Lois almost like in like heaven because she's like, "Wow, I'm inside his home, and it's not, the fortress. This is like his actual home." We actually get to see like who this kid was and who he is and how he is as human as anybody and how he comes from these humble beginnings and like seeing her kind of revel in that simple life and how she saw the beauty in that. Again, telling their love story, I think James Gunn did so many beats that was smart. That was a very smart one, and him meeting his parents and seeing how they influence him and how they play a role in this movie. I love the Kents, and again in many ways they're how well they do in this movie makes me even care less about like the elves. It's like sometimes the Krypton stuff and the elf stuff reminds me a bit of like people who are obsessed with like Department H when it comes to Wolverine, or people who are obsessed with like uh, you know X-23's like background and that like and not willing to move on from like what are like the darker elements of like these characters when like they have so much more that they've been influenced by since their beginnings. That's how I feel about the elves and Krypton sometimes. Whereas me, and we talked about this like when the show was coming out, and like I'm just like I just don't care, man. Like I really just don't care. Like I care if you bring them into like the present and like how they impact like a current story, but in terms of like what was going on Krypton, like it's not something I'm interested in. And I don't really something that like Joel's like that Jerry Siegel was interested in when he was making the story. I don't think that was the whole. I don't think he was obsessed with that. I think he was obsessed with moving the story forward. So I think in some ways, like making them kind of folks that like aren't the most like upstanding in many ways makes you kind of don't want to think about them, which is fine by me. So that's part of the reason why it was different and it was definitely jarring. Like it didn't like just take me so back because it actually allowed me to in the moment appreciate the Kents way more.
And maybe, and I'll be honest, it could be that maybe it's all those years of watching Smallville, man. You see so much of Jor-El, and then even in what you would call it, Man of Steel.
Yeah,
Jor-El is in a considerable amount of scenes in that,
yeah,
where he's like talking to Clark and
yes.
guiding him through the ship and all this stuff. Like you see a good amount of Jor-El, so you really kind of feel that he has like two families, kind of, as opposed to this one where it's like, that's
and
not
I've
his
never
family.
really loved that. To me, that's like it's kind of ridiculous. These people died. Like I know they all have their
It's always kind of
artificial intelligence is still here. So therefore, it's like Clark still has his dad, and like I'm not. No, his parents are Ma and Pa Kent. Like these people died. Like their planet blew up. I don't need. I don't know what it is, but there are fashion fans that love that aspect of Superman, and I think some of it, people like outer space, people like aliens and things like that. So that like this, I get it for some people. It's not for me. So like the L being quote unquote evil, so to speak, or whatever you want to call them, like it doesn't move me in a way that is big a deal. But I want to get to some of this conflicts before we get out of here and the fight scenes and the way the movie ends. So um, again, we see Clark after the revelation of the L's tried to take himself in because of the nature of Lex Luthor's influence on the Security Council. He's able to, and Clark's not having rights as an American citizen. They are convinced to allow Planet Watch to look over the detainment of Superman, which then leads to the revelation of this pocket universe and um, the inhumane way in which Lex Luthor is harboring all these prisoners from various different countries that folks either don't want to deal with or who need to be dealt with prejudice. And then also Lex is abusing it, like just putting ex-girlfriends he doesn't like in there. Like terrible situation. That's where we meet Metamorpho, of course, in this part of the movie. But this is really kind of how the movie really kicks off the real kind of climax to the film, which is Mr. Terrific helping Lois and getting him out. Metamorpho also helping Superman get out of that prison, which leads to like I think a really well done, cool, sequence and a cool team up with Metamorpho and Superman, fighting the Raptors while also trying to save Metamorpho's son. It's just really cool. Like the effects were really cool. Like I just think it all looked like a really thrilling, exciting ride. That whole events happening in the Pocket Universe. And it brings us to the main universe where Superman has his two conflicts, where he has the Moravian conflict and the wormhole is happening. And in trying to save the wormhole, he has to deal with the Planet Watch again, which means Ultraman and the Engineer. Fight scene is phenomenal. I think it ends eventually with the one-on-one essentially between Ultraman, who's been masked for most of the movie, and Superman. That is when we get the reveal that Ultraman is indeed a clone of Superman. That Lex has taken Superman's DNA throughout various parts and various battles. He finally got a strand of hair, and that allowed him to recreate Superman that listens to his commands, that is, as he said, quote, dumber than him. To me, this is an obvious kind of like lead in to Bizarro, obviously, to me. Like, I think that's clear as day once you saw it. He was a clone, but he was dumb and he didn't talk and things like that. And he was just like this big, strong monster that was just destroying and whatever. That to me was them, like, especially with him now being sent into a black hole. That Bizarro is probably coming at some point in time in this movie. But I think a really gripping fight scene that had some really, awesome, powerful moments. So the dialogue between Lex Luthor and Superman during these scenes are A1, no pun intended, as he's yelling, 1A, 1A, 1A during fight scenes. By the way, I love that too. I love just like,
oh man,
Lex having this team of people, but using these like drones to watch the fight and him calling the fight. I felt like he was like
when they introduced that,
he was like Andy Reid with the play sheet, calling the plays on the field, while his staff, he's got the offensive coordinator on here, the defensive coordinator on here, and he's giving them commands and stuff. I mean, that was great. And I told Shamari that I don't know if James Gunn got this from this story, but Mike Tyson, when he was coming up as a boxer, his trainer Customato, that's how he would get Mike Tyson to do combinations mid-fight. He would yell certain number combinations, and Mike Tyson would know that would mean uppercut, jab, uppercut. Like he would yell 5, 3, 2, 1, and then that meant something. And him using that to fight Superman felt like Customato with Mike Tyson, with an absolute killing machine monster, giving out commands as Mike Tyson tore through the heavyweight division early in his career. I was like, if James Gunn, if he didn't know that, then that's just happenstance. That's lucky. If he did, then that's absolutely brilliant. That's how he thought of Lex Luthor and how he could make his impact felt. Don't put him in a Raptor suit. No, have him actually calling the play for a Superman clone and him beating Superman and beating him up and doing damage because of just how much he has studied Superman's game. I thought that was just alone a phenomenal use.
Yeah, the way they introduced that with the with the way they introduced that with the Hammer of Baravia, because when you're watching this, you're like, who is this guy, right? Like, you just seem like there's no way this is straight up, right? And then they show Lex and, like you said, his army of analysts. Like it felt to me that was one of my favorite villain introductions of all time, right? It's got like the music and everything behind it when they show LexCorp or Luthor Corp, and then you're like, oh man, like incredible intro. It's perfect because especially that intro, just because it's like you're like, oh yeah, there's obviously like this political conflicts going on, and Lex is like, I'm gonna create a super villain that is like, representing Baravia, but it's just some corporate villain. Like it was perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a phenomenal way again, you want to talk about Shamari mentioning how like Corn Sweat sold him immediately on Superman. Like that scene immediately sells me on Lex. I'm like, all right, I'm in. This guy is Lex Luthor. This is such a Lex Luthor thing to be representing another country. Meanwhile, like he's simply just a guy that's literally from this backyard. He uses this, which we now know with like these things of Pocket Universe. But this is almost like a boom tube to go from
I was convinced it was a boom tube.
The beach to right back to Luthor Court where all the people are celebrating. He's got these minions that I love. Also, I love that he has minions. I love that he has just like 40 to 50 people who are totally just invested in working for him. Like that's they're not like hiding their faces.
That's real life,
they're
man.
just they're in Luthor. Yeah, exactly. They're in Luthor Court. They're like they got the guy with the glasses and the black dudes like good work, people. Everybody stay safe. It feels again. It does it right. It feels very real, right? These are there are billionaire corporate forces that do evil work all the time, and they're not alone. There are folks who work with these people and support these people. So I love that was actually fully on display in this movie. But at least that fight scene at the end with Superman versus Ultraman versus the Engineer with little Mr. Terrific mixed in there ends with a pretty epic scene of Superman, being able to get those nanites out of his lungs by flying all the way up into the atmosphere and just torpedoing down onto Earth and just smashing onto Earth to get the nanites out of his lungs. And then the fight scene with Ultraman that is one thanks to Crypto. Crypto being the MVP and being able to take away Lex's eyes with those drones and allow Superman to then have a one-on-one without the help of Lex versus Ultraman, and that being a fight that he was able to win. So fun fight scene. I think the end of the movie with that kind of like diatribe between Lex and Superman saying that him calling him alien, being like, you don't understand, that's the one thing you got wrong about me, is I am human just like everybody, and yes, I make mistakes, but I'm just another person who's just trying to put their best foot forward. And Lex being like, that's BS, and blah 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 blah. And then of course Crypto comes in very much like Hulk in Avengers, with Logan, after we've heard so much of Lex's just going on and on about how great he is and how he's like Galileo and all these crazy. He's about to do another one of these things, just to the point where we're like, all right, I think I've heard enough of this. And that's when Crypto, of course, comes in and does all the damage that he does. I think James is definitely inspired by Avengers with that. But I thought a truly great end to the film. I love how this movie finished up. How did you guys think of how like the final conflicts finished between Superman, Lex, and everybody involved?
Man, I thought it was fantastic. Great ending fight. As you guys pointed out, I love him like Lex controlling Ultraman, this Superman clone. The final conversation between Superman and Lex was perfect. Just chef's kiss, perfectly written, perfectly played out. It was great. It was wonderfully done. I like of course we get the reveal at the end, Supergirl, that Crypto was Supergirl's dog and such, and that's going to be fun to see. So we know we'll see more of him, almost certainly. And the Supergirl movie, it was really, and of course the number 4 robot, they call him Gary and such, which was fun. It was just a great ending to a fun action packed Superman movie. So I thought it was good.
I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, to me, the Ultraman being a clone of Superman reveal was okay. I'm not gonna say it was. I wasn't like predicting it. I'm not gonna say it was like so obvious, but it's one of those things that whenever you see a character that doesn't show his face for the entire movie, you're like, oh, it's definitely one of the actors, right? That's right, because otherwise we would have saw them on the cast. And so when David Coruscant, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I saw this in The Flash not that long ago. But it's funny, him with the long hair, like I was getting a lot of Winter Soldier vibes going on. with fighting him and everything. I was like, oh, this is throwing me back to Cap Winter Soldier. But um, yeah, I mean, the fight scene was awesome. Like you said, the Lex Luthor combat mechanism was awesome. Like you said, way better than the idea of throwing him in some Ironmonger suit, or some Hulkbuster suit. Like, I actually just have him, actually have him, like you said, calling the plays was a smart twist. I would definitely like the Bizarro twist. I think that gives it a little bit more. I personally would prefer when they saved the whole Lex Luthor stealing Superman's DNA for Superboy. That's why I was like, I think they ran this play too soon, when it came to the DNA thing.
But they can still do that, Kendall, because to me, like
I still think they're going to do
it.
it.
I think they're going to do it too. Yeah, because this was a direct, straight clone of Superman, and that didn't work.
Okay.
Like, it was too dumb. It was, there were flaws with that. So think about Lex Luthor. How would he think he could make a clone of Superman better, include his own DNA? Like, that to me is like the perfect way. That would make perfect sense. Oh, well, I tried to do a direct clone of Superman, and that guy turned out to be an idiot. Couldn't do anything right unless I was telling him what to do. Well, let me just make a clone where my DNA is already in there, so I don't have to just like babysit him and tell him everything he has to do. Like, I actually think from a story standpoint, it lends perfectly to Lex trying this again, because there's no way that was his only shot at a clone. He definitely has more DNA.
That's fair.
Give this another shot. I think it leads actually perfectly into a Superboy. In fact, I think it leads perfectly into a Superboy versus Bizarro fight at some point down the road too. If you want to do that for a Teen Titans movie or a Superman movie or a Superboy movie at some point down the road.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's not terrible. I hadn't thought about that, but it's the. I just wonder how much is the casual audience gonna keep caring about another Superman clone, right?
They don't care about Superman movie because this movie is hot. I think that they've got the audience, so they can do almost whatever they want now.
Right. Not necessarily. I mean, how much are they going to, or just are they going to keep buying the same concept, right? And same story of oh man, Lex cloned another. You have another Superman clone out there, but again, Superboy is different, right? Like, you may not present him as a villain, right? He may not debut as a villain, right? But that was just my thing. I was like, man, we're already doing the Superman DNA thing, but yeah, no, I mean, in terms of the rest of it, I wouldn't have done the whole pocket universe is collapsing the Earth thing, though that was a little extreme, but the fight was good, and I thought the Baravian conflict, coming to a head was good as well. And ultimately I thought the movie ended fairly well, and it was, seeing the Justice Gang come back, and I thought it was an interesting ending.
Yeah, and then the movie ends, with the Kara Zor-El reveal. She shows up, and she's hammered or hungover, and again, we learned that is her dog. Krypto's her dog, which makes sense when Superman really said it's more of a foster situation, and we see how Krypto doesn't necessarily listen to Superman all that much, and a lot of it makes sense when we kind of see that it's Kara's dog. We see the interactions between Kara and Krypto. I liked it. I think I heard some people also kind of concerned about how much they like, Krypto being Kara's dog. I did not have an issue with that at all. To me, it's a family dog. Like, your cousin has a dog. It's almost like it's your dog. Like, you guys know I have a dog, but Lito is like if you guys were dealing with Lito. Like, I think it would still feel familiar. I still feel like something you guys would be really invested in. So I had almost no issue with Kara being the owner of Krypto, and in fact, actually made me excited because I'm like, oh great, now we get to see Krypto literally next year. Like, it's not like we gotta wait for 3 more years for a Superman movie. Like, Krypto was just a great addition to this movie. Like, the idea that we will get to see him again very soon
in a different context,
in a totally different context, where maybe he can actually run a little more wild and be a little more crazy because his owner will allow him to, and set up what I think, for folks who maybe aren't familiar with the Woman of Tomorrow story, probably was a little jarring to see Kara in that, in that state. her drunk and her calling Superman a bitch, like those things that they're like, oh, this is interesting. But that for that story, like that is very akin to who that character was in that story, and I think that it made me excited to see this version. I mean, it's a Superwoman girl that's so different from the Kal-El that was introduced in this movie that it made me more excited to see Supergirl next year.
Yep. Yeah, I'm more excited, for sure. And I think, especially seeing Molly Alcock and seeing her performance in House of the Dragon, she
Right.
was fantastic in House of the Dragon. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing her portrayal of Kara. As you said, no, we're getting Crypto back. That's exciting. Um, yeah, and especially after how good this movie was. So it just gives you more hope for the universe. And I want to see more of these types of superheroes. I want to see more team ups, more fights, more everything. And so yeah, it's really exciting. And I'm, as I told you guys, I'm still holding out hope we'll get maybe a sneak peek this year at Comic Con. If James Gunn,
That's next week.
has any plans to grace us with his presence this year again, as he
Yeah.
did last year.
Yeah, we know DC's not having a panel. I believe Peacemaker's having a panel.
Well, New York Comic Con, not San Diego.
Oh, at New York Comic Con.
Oh, New York Comic Con, right? Oh, well, that I think that's a very good. Very good. Maybe high. I think there's a good chance it's gonna happen. I think DC is gonna work this thing different than Marvel has. Like James Gunn being at New York Comic Con last year was a little surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you guys saw him last year, so you guys have a better idea than me.
Yeah, I mean, he was at there with the Future Commandos, panel, and then he
that was a real deal, full panel
with the whole cast, and then he also answered questions about the status of the DCU, like there. He talked about Superman. The movie's been cut. We have a movie, and then we talked about that following week. Those quotes. So I think he's going to value New York Comic Con a lot more than Marvel has over the last 15 years, and how DC has had over the last few years.
He might like going to New York, right? Like there's always that aspect to it where it's like,
for sure,
he might like being able to go to New York if he can.
It's a massive opportunity, a massive con. It happened in the New York media,
yes.
in the New York press,
right?
At a very
get out of the Hollywood bubble.
Yeah, and at a pretty hot time in media, right? Like that's the fall, so a lot of TV shows are coming back or just came back. Like you can make a lot of news during that time of the year.
Lanterns is also coming out.
I always thought of it. Thought we taking them?
No, I was going to say Lanterns is also coming out in early 2026 as well, allegedly. So that's another thing that if not Supergirl, Lanterns may also have a thing there if they decide to pay.
Yeah, I expect them to have something. But again, I do think Peacemaker is supposed to have a panel at San Diego, so I would not be surprised if James Gunn says something next week. Like he showed at the Peacemaker at the Commandos thing, he was totally fine. He's answering some questions about the rest of the.
He understood the elephant in the room.
Yeah, like you can't have the guy who's creating Superman there and not actually ask him about Superman. That's crazy, and he's not an idiot. Like I love the way James Gunn has run DC so far in many aspects. That showed me something that he got it. And I said to Mark earlier this week about him talking about how people aren't they don't have superhero fatigue. They have mediocre fatigue, and people have seen so many mediocre movies that it has led people to think that is involving superheroes. But you can make mediocre movies of any genre, just like you can make great movies of any genre. He could not have been more right. Like, I think he has a really good head on his shoulders regarding what it's going to take for DC to be a success. And so far, I think the Superman installment shows that he's definitely on the right track.
Now, the one hot take that I was going to say earlier is after seeing this movie, I think it is a mistake to do a Supergirl movie next. I think that they should be again trying to focus on getting their mainline big time Justice League characters done first before they and I don't think that's the priority right now for them. I mean, I know he says it is, but at least it wasn't the priority when he announced his first batch of movies. But I think that they should frame this a lot closer to what Marvel is doing with the Avengers. And like, obviously they're not trying to rush or not trying to have too much output, and like that concerns me in terms of like, the attention span, and like Supergirl now has not like, it's not like it has a ton of pressure, but now Supergirl's got to be really good to be worth the investment that they're putting into this thing, because it's not something that like I'm not expecting Supergirl to show up in Justice League, right? And maybe she does, but I'm not expecting her to be like this big, Justice League member or anything like that. And so I don't know. That was the one thing where I was like, man, like this was good, but I mean, I guess we got a Batman movie coming out eventually, and we got a Lantern show, and we got a Wonder Woman Themyscira spin-off thing.
And that's fair, but I guess
Flash.
I'll defend it in this way. Number one, Supergirl is Supergirl. It's not elongated man, right? Like Supergirl is a B-list character. If you're not doing it, if you're talking about the A-list characters, you're saying those characters you're mentioning are A-list characters. Batman, Wonder Woman, like okay, well, Supergirl's a step below that. She's not like a light years away, so you're not going that far. And I actually think it's a strength that they did this, because Superman was so well received that this Superman adjacent universe, doing a spin-off of Superman right after Superman, to me is a very logical way to make your next movie, because of how successful this was. I could argue maybe this was not a success, and maybe that'd be to a detriment. But now you have Crypto, who's now part of this world, and Kara Zor-El is literally related to him.
Like, I don't know if you're expanding
anything that happens now with Superwoman, I don't like Supergirl, is also adjacent to Clark's world too, and we now very much care about everything happening in Clark's world. So I can make the case that Supergirl is actually the perfect movie to do after Superman for the next one. It's not the variety in terms of world expanding beyond the Metropolis Superman world, but but it is still expanding the Superman world, which is very important. And now is,
I mean, look, a lot of people are ready for a sequel.
Maybe outside of like doing the Batman and doing Batman Brave Bolt, is maybe the most important thing they can do now is explore the Superman world and expand the Superman world. They're already
a lot of people are ready for a
Jimmy
sequel.
Olsen show and doing a Mr. Terrific show. Like this movie was so well received that now that becomes top priority. So I would argue that in many ways, it's the right
like to me, it's like if the second thing that came out after Iron Man was like a War Machine project, right? We would be like, look, I mean, this is cool, right? We all like, and that was Terrence Howard at the time. It's like we all like Rhodey, but it's like, it being Captain America next, right? And then Thor and Hulk and all these different things was like, that is what made the Avengers, like such a crazy idea, right? And so there's multiple ways to skin a cat. You don't have to do exactly what Marvel did, but I think, man, off the momentum they've gotten, like, again, I don't know when this Batman movie's coming out, right? And I don't know what else. And again, they got Lanterns. They've got other movies. I mean, Teen Titans, I guess they're working on, but they gotta. And we'll get updates, right? I don't want to not sound too doom and gloom, because again, we may find out next week that we got 3 movies coming out in 2028 and 2027 and blah blah blah, and but the Matt Reeves thing really threw them off, right? Because it's pushed everything back in terms of if they had Batman 2 coming out in a couple months, which is what it was supposed to be, like then I'd be like, man, like, boy, Marvel's got real pressure, because like the entire vibe shift it will have happened, right? But but right now, like, I don't know. I still have to see, like, Supergirl now still has to really deliver, right? Because it's kind of a standalone in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. I mean, I think saying it's a mistake is a bit. It's kind of a lot. I don't know if I say it's a mistake, because he has. I think there's just a lot of stuff coming out,
and we got this
or a lot of stuff that he's announced. Yeah, we had the Clayface thing now. I mean, it's just there's a lot of stuff that's been announced that has yet to come out. We know Batman's on the agenda. We know this, Paradise Lost thing is on the agenda. But yeah, it's just, I mean, for me, I think the bigger thing is as long as the stuff is good. I think that's what matters the most. Um, and I also wouldn't call it a mistake because I mean we'll see where Marvel is. You know, I thought Ironheart was very good, but Marvel has not been hitting on all cylinders necessarily. So it's not like Marvel's going into Endgame, and I mean we'll see again. We'll see how Doomsday is, right? If Doomsday is like
I
incredible,
mean, they're not going to
then
Endgame
like
yet, but
if Doomsday is like incredible, then it's like okay, all right, so maybe he could have shifted the order a little bit, but like I think saying it's a mistake is maybe a bit much at this point.
I agree. I agree. I don't think that it's early. I think this movie's too good to say that like doing something else adjacent to Superman. I think it's a mistake. Not to see it be a mistake before I can say it's a mistake. That would be the way I look at it. But we're running out of time here. Let's do scores for this film, Superman. So I'll go to Kendall first. What are you giving Superman the score out of 10?
um, I'll go 8. I think that this was I mean, this has to be the best DC movie that we've had since. I think it's you could argue Blue Beetle, but um, I'd probably say Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Like it's the best DC movie we've had in a while. Best Superman movie we've had. You could argue going back to Superman 2, Superman 1, like it's in that conversation as well. David Corenswet was great. Nicholas Hoult was I think he was an all time great villain. Rachel Brosnahan was a great Lois Lane. I mean, it had a lot of great things to it. I think again some of the story stuff was maybe just some choices I wouldn't have made, but again, James Gunn I think put a lot of thought into this thing. So I don't know if there's not much about this movie that you can change, right? I think it is a very much the movie is the movie, and just however you feel about it is how you're going to feel about it. Um, but it's a again massive win for DC, and now it gets people excited to see what the rest of their universe is going to look like.
All right, Shamari, what do you gonna give Superman out of 10?
I give Superman a 9 out of 10. I thought it was a fantastic movie, very good movie. I enjoyed it from start to finish. Um, again, again a few nitpicks here and there, things that decisions I wouldn't have made, but nothing that was significantly impacted my enjoyment of the movie. Very fun, a lot of action, which I always like. Funny, lots of laughs, and then characters that are just again casting perfect. Score was fantastic.
Absolutely.
The kind of the like twist on the John Williams score that was used throughout, it just fit so perfect. It fit more even better than I thought it would.
Yep.
It was just great. It was a great movie. So I give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that same score. I'm gonna do 9 out of 10 as well. Like I said, when I think of some of the greatest first solo movies, again mentioning Black Panther, Spider Man, Sam Raimi, like I see a lot of people make that comparison to that movie, Iron Man 1. Like this to me is right there with that. A phenomenal introduction to a character that I think that we are all now fully invested in and wanting to see what their future is, not just in their own future iterations of Superman movies, but also in other tie-in movies, whether it be a Batman Superman movie or a Justice League movie down the road. Like they have you hooked, and I think a lot of that is getting the credit to James Gunn, who I think put together a good story, was able to really direct some really awesome action, small things, just like how they sequenced the actors and boxed certain actors. Like I love the face-off sequences with like Lex and Superman, and just seeing how Lex and Superman look at each other eye to eye. Like Lex is not like some little short guy; that he actually stands up to Superman physically. I think also like sends a message that these are equals, and I think he was able to display something small like that in so many important ways. The interactions with Lois and Clark. How about Jimmy Olsen? We're going to talk about another unsung hero in this movie. That Zack Snyder thinking, "Oh, who cares about Jimmy Olsen?" Well, this movie showed the value of Jimmy Olsen. and why that character actually is important and how they can make an impact. And him and his relationship with Eve Tessmacher and how that played into the whole movie brought comedic relief, but also brought actual important plot points that worked in the movie completely. So James Gunn made so many great story decisions. Again, there were small nitpicks. I kind of, the only one of the small things I wish that maybe we knew a little bit more about, like how long the Luthor Superman conflict was, like how much they had been beefing, like, because eventually Superman says, like, this obsession you have with me is getting a little old. I'm like, I want to know maybe even a little bit more about how long has this obsession been. Like, has Lex been just on TV nonstop for the last 3 years talking about Superman, or is this like one of the first of their interactions? Like, I would have liked to see a little more of that. I think they kind of left it a little ambiguous for me. I think you're supposed to assume that they've been at it for a while, but I think I would have wanted to see more. But that's one of the small nitpicks I have. I don't have many nitpicks with this film. In many ways, I love the stuff that they included from the expanded DC universe. I actually wanted almost more. I can't. It's crazy that movie that had so much stuff happening. I was like, as the movie was ending and I'm seeing the Gotham City street sign and stuff, I'm like, yeah, show me more. Show me as much of like what this world looked like. I think for a lot of folks, what the DCU world looks like is still so much of a mystery because we've only seen little pockets. We saw a little bit of Creature Commandos. We see now a little bit of Superman, and that's a lot. Like, it's a lot of characters, a lot of people we've been introduced to, but we still have so much more to explore. And it does truly feel like James Gunn is playing in a sandbox that is as large as the Grand Canyon. So I love this movie. It's already one of my favorite superhero movies. It is already my favorite Superman movie. And I think that Marvel is in trouble. I'm going to keep saying that. I think we're officially at that point now. Marvel, in many ways, I think, was lucky because there was no competition. There is competition now, and they're in serious trouble. Superman, to me, gets a 9 out of 10. I think that's a great place to leave it, though, guys. So I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of New Generation Hero Talk. Of course, you catch all our shows where you catch all of our podcasts on New Generation Podcast Network. You catch that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and wherever you get your podcasts. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube, New Generation Media, where you can catch the review of this podcast, the video version of this review on the podcast version. New Generation Media, where you'll find that on YouTube. Follow us on social media at New Generation Pod on Twitter, New Generation Podcast on Instagram, and follow us individually on social media. I am on X, EJ_Stewart, Instagram, actually EJ. Shamari is on Instagram and Snapchat, MC22. Kendall is on Twitter, New Gen Ken. That'll do it for now. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. For Shamari, for Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.